For most of his life, Christopher Wilder looked like the kind of man who blended quietly into the background. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't drink much or get into fights. People who met him often walked away thinking the same thing: he seems normal, maybe too normal. But behind that calm, polite mask lived one of the most dangerous predators the United States had ever seen. His story began in the late 1940s, when he was born to Australian parents living in America. From a young age, there was something different about him. Teachers described him as quiet, strange, and uncomfortable around people his age. But none of them could have predicted what he would turn into. When he reached adulthood, Wilder moved into a life that looked successful from the outside. He made good money as a contractor. He drove expensive cars. He traveled often. He looked respectable, someone who could be trusted with a job, with money, even with people. But inside, something dark was growing. By the late 1970s, Wilder had discovered something that fed the monster inside him. The beauty pageant scene. Young women, teenagers, sometimes girls even younger, all wanting to become models or pageant winners, full of hope, full of innocence. Wilder watched them from the sidelines, hiding behind the role of a friendly photographer. He knew exactly what they wanted: a chance, an opportunity, a door into the glamorous world of modeling. And he knew exactly how to use that. At first, he approached young women politely. He offered compliments, advice, sometimes small photo shoots. Some said no and walked away. But others, young and hopeful, believed his confident smile and well-dressed appearance. They believed he was someone important. And Wilder loved that feeling, the feeling of being trusted, admired, and needed. It fed something inside him that the world could not see. But what no one knew was that Christopher Wilder had already started experimenting with violence. He had attacked before, secretly, quietly, in ways that didn't make the news, in ways the police didn't catch. Each time he attacked, he learned something new about himself. He learned what he liked. He learned what he could get away with. He learned that he could smile at a woman one moment and terrify her the next, and no one around him would ever guess. By the early 1980s, Wilder was no longer just pretending to be a photographer, he was using that lie as his main hunting tool. Wilder became obsessed, not with photography, but with control. He wanted to choose who lived, who suffered, who vanished. And the more he hid behind his fake photographer identity, the easier everything became. In 1982, he traveled from Florida to California for beauty pageants. He watched the contestants closely, how they walked, how they smiled, how nervous they were. He approached some of them, pretending to offer opportunities. And Wilder felt unstoppable. By 1984, the calm, polite man the world thought they knew had completely disappeared. The monster inside him had taken over. He was no longer satisfied with small attacks or secret assaults. He wanted more. He grabbed his camera. He got into his car. And he began the journey that would become one of the most terrifying cross-country crime sprees in American history. His first confirmed victim would be a young woman named Rosario Gonzalez, who worked at the Miami Grand Prix, a bright, cheerful girl with dreams of a better future. But Wilder never cared about dreams, only victims. And as he approached her with his practiced smile and camera in hand, the nightmare truly began. The man the world thought was harmless, was about to show everyone who he really was. The beauty queen killer had begun his final chapter. And no one was ready for what was coming. For most of his life, Christopher Wilder looked like the kind of man who blended quietly into the background. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten anyone. But behind that calm, polite mask lived one of the most dangerous predators the United States had ever seen. His story began in the late 1940s, when he was born to Australian parents living in America. From a young age, there was something different about him. Teachers described him as quiet, strange, and uncomfortable around people his age. But none of them could have predicted what he would turn into. By the late 1970s, Wilder had discovered something that fed the monster inside him. The beauty pageant scene. Young women, teenagers, sometimes girls even younger, all wanting to become models or pageant winners, full of hope, full of innocence. Wilder watched them from the sidelines, hiding behind the role of a friendly photographer. He knew exactly what they wanted: a chance, an opportunity, a door into the glamorous world of modeling. And he knew exactly how to use that. At first, he approached young women politely. He offered compliments, advice, sometimes small photo shoots. Some said no and walked away. But others, young and hopeful, believed his confident smile and well-dressed appearance. They believed he was someone important. And Wilder loved that feeling, the feeling of being trusted, admired, and needed. It fed something inside him that the world could not see. But what no one knew was that Christopher Wilder had already started experimenting with violence. He had attacked before, secretly, quietly, in ways that didn't make the news, in ways the police didn't catch. Each time he attacked, he learned something new about himself. He learned what he liked. He learned what he could get away with. He learned that he could smile at a woman one moment and terrify her the next, and no one around him would ever guess. By the early 1980s, Wilder was no longer just pretending to be a photographer, he was using that lie as his main hunting tool. He would drive through shopping malls, beauty contests, and modeling events with a camera around his neck. Women trusted the look. It made him appear harmless. After all, who suspects the man behind the camera? But the truth was darker than anyone imagined. Wilder became obsessed, not with photography, but with control. He wanted to choose who lived, who suffered, who vanished. And the more he hid behind his fake photographer identity, the easier everything became. In 1982, he traveled from Florida to California for beauty pageants. He watched the contestants closely, how they walked, how they smiled, how nervous they were. He approached some of them, pretending to offer opportunities. He had found the perfect environment. A community full of young women dreaming of fame, desperate to be discovered, desperate to trust. By 1984, the calm, polite man the world thought they knew had completely disappeared. The monster inside him had taken over. He was no longer satisfied with small attacks or secret assaults. He wanted more. He wanted to move. He wanted to hunt freely, city after city, state after state. He packed his bags. He grabbed his camera. He got into his car. And he began the journey that would become one of the most terrifying cross-country crime sprees in American history. His first confirmed victim would be a young woman named Rosario Gonzalez, who worked at the Miami Grand Prix, a bright, cheerful girl with dreams of a better future. But Wilder never cared about dreams, only victims. And as he approached her with his practiced smile and camera in hand, the nightmare truly began. The man the world thought was harmless, was about to show everyone who he really was. When Rosario Gonzalez arrived for work at the Miami Grand Prix, she felt excited. She liked the energy of the crowd, the sound of engines, and the fast pace of the event. She was young, friendly, and full of life. She had dreams, maybe simple ones, but they were hers. She wanted to travel, to meet people, to build a better future. That morning, she had no idea that a man was watching her. A man who had already chosen her long before she saw him. Christopher Wilder walked through the crowd with his camera hanging from his neck, pretending to take photos of the race, the cars, the people. But he wasn't looking for engines or drivers. He was looking for someone who fit his pattern, young, pretty, trusting. Rosario caught his eye almost immediately. She smiled often at people passing by. She looked like the kind of person who believed the best in others. Wilder approached her slowly, carefully, the same way he always did. Polite voice. Soft smile. Friendly questions. Nothing suspicious. He asked her if she had ever modeled before. She laughed and said no. He told her she had the face for it. She hesitated, but she didn't feel afraid, not yet. Why would she? To her, he looked like any other photographer working the event. To him, she was the first step in a long journey of terror. That afternoon, Rosario followed Wilder toward the parking area, where he said he had some sample photos to show her. She trusted him enough to walk with him. People saw them leave together. But Rosario never returned. She vanished from the Miami Grand Prix as if she had walked straight into darkness. Police searched. Family begged. Volunteers looked everywhere. But Wilder was already gone, driving north, hunting again. Days later, another young woman disappeared. This time, it was Elizabeth Kenyon, a beautiful 23-year-old who worked as a teacher. She was kind, gentle, and loved by everyone who knew her. She had met Wilder once before, months earlier, when he pretended to help her build a modeling profile. She remembered him as polite and soft-spoken, someone who seemed trustworthy. But she didn't know the truth. She didn't know his history. She didn't know he had already murdered. Elizabeth told friends she was going to meet someone about a job opportunity, a chance to model, a chance to earn some money. She didn't say who it was. She didn't think it mattered. It mattered more than she could ever imagine. She met Wilder at a parking lot, just like Rosario. And just like Rosario, she vanished without a trace. Police were confused. How could two bright, responsible women disappear within days? How could they both vanish while going about their normal lives? But Wilder didn't stay in Florida. He kept moving. The next place he appeared was Tallahassee, where he saw two college students shopping at a mall. He approached them with his usual script: "I'm a photographer, you have potential, can I take a few photos?" This time, one of the girls refused and walked away. But Wilder didn't let go. He followed the second girl into a restroom, pushed her inside, and tried to force her down. She screamed. People nearby heard. Wilder ran out before anyone could see his face clearly. He wasn't afraid of the police. He wasn't afraid of being caught. He only cared about control. For him, fear wasn't something he felt, it was something he created. He got back into his car and left Tallahassee immediately. He drove for hours, crossing state lines, searching for somewhere new. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere he could hunt again. A few days later, in Meridian, Mississippi, Wilder met a young woman named Cheryl Bonaventura. Their first meeting seemed harmless. She was traveling, visiting different places, open to new experiences. Wilder approached her as usual, charming and calm. He offered her a ride. She accepted. Witnesses saw them together. Witnesses saw her leave with him. No one saw her again. Wilder didn't stay long. He couldn't. He never did. He moved like a shadow across the country, from state to state, from city to city. Every time he stopped, someone disappeared. By March 1984, the FBI finally realized something terrifying. These disappearances were connected. They were not accidents. They were the work of a serial predator. The victims were young women. They were all last seen with a polite, charming man who pretended to be a photographer. He drove long distances. He left no bodies behind. The FBI released a nationwide alert. They printed wanted posters. They contacted police departments in every state. They warned malls and universities. But Wilder was always one step ahead. The more the world looked for him, the more he hid behind his calm smile, the more dangerous he became. And somewhere deep inside, Wilder knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't running away. He was hunting. He was enjoying the fear, the search, the chaos. His next victim would be someone who truly believed he was a professional, someone who trusted the man behind the camera. Her name was Tina Marie Rizzico, a teenage girl who dreamed of becoming a model. Wilder had found what he wanted. Someone young. Someone hopeful. Someone alone. The hunt was far from over. It was just beginning. By the time Christopher Wilder reached California, he had become more than a man on the run. He was a shadow moving across America, leaving fear and confusion behind him. Police were trying to connect missing person cases. Families were begging for answers. Newspapers were printing headlines about a mysterious photographer. But Wilder didn't stop. He didn't hide. He didn't slow down. He had found something that made him feel powerful, the ability to control lives, futures, and destinies. And when he arrived in Huntington Beach, he met someone who would become the most important part of his dark journey. Tina Marie Rizzico. She was only 16. Young. Innocent. Hopeful. Like many girls her age, she dreamed of modeling. She liked fashion, cameras, and the idea of being discovered. She wasn't aware that real monsters sometimes walk in daylight. She wasn't aware that a predator could smile, speak softly, and look safe. That afternoon, Tina was walking near the school parking lot when Wilder approached her. Polite voice. Gentle smile. Professional posture. He asked her if she wanted to model. She didn't take him seriously at first. Many strangers had approached her before, offering fake opportunities. But Wilder seemed different. He carried expensive equipment. He spoke like someone experienced. He didn't pressure her. He talked calmly, letting her relax. That was his talent. He made danger feel harmless. When Tina walked to her car, Wilder followed quietly. And the moment she unlocked the door, everything changed. Wilder pushed her inside, covered her mouth, and forced her down. She tried to scream, but he whispered in her ear with a cold, steady voice. "Do what I say, and I won't hurt you." It was a lie. But Tina didn't know that yet. He drove her for hours, stopping only when necessary. Tina sat frozen, terrified, unable to understand what was happening. She kept thinking. Why me? What does he want? Will I survive? Wilder didn't speak much. When he did, his tone was soft, almost kind, which made it even scarier. He told her she was lucky. He told her he chose her for a reason. He told her she didn't need to be afraid, as long as she listened. Psychologists would later describe Wilder as a groomer of fear, Someone who knew how to break a victim's mind slowly, step by step, until they felt helpless. That night, Wilder took Tina to a motel. What happened behind that door was so dark, so cruel, that investigators later refused to release many details. But Tina survived hours of terror. She cried until she had no more strength. She begged him to let her go. He didn't. Instead, he began manipulating her. He told her he needed her. He told her she was special. He told her that if she cooperated, she would live. Slowly, painfully, Tina realized something. If she wanted to survive this man, she would need to understand him, even pretend to agree with him. So she stayed calm. She listened. She didn't fight. She learned his habits, his moods, his fears. And Wilder believed she was under his control. The next morning, he forced Tina to help him. He made her approach other women, pretending to recruit them for a modeling job. She became part of his plan, but only because she was afraid he would kill her if she refused. Imagine the terror. A teenage girl standing beside the man who abducted her. Smiling at strangers. Inviting them closer. Silently praying they didn't say yes. Tina lived in that nightmare for days. Wilder changed hotels constantly. He changed routes. He switched license plates. He didn't sleep much. He knew the FBI was closing in. But the more pressure he felt, the more reckless he became. In Nevada, he tried to approach a young woman at a mall. She grew suspicious and walked away. Wilder forced Tina to follow her, but security saw them and intervened. Wilder panicked and fled. He hated losing control. It made him unpredictable. It made him dangerous. During their time together, Tina started to understand Wilder in a way no one else ever had. He wasn't always angry. Sometimes he talked like a lonely child. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes he told her stories about his life, stories that didn't match police records, stories that felt like lies he told himself to feel normal. He was a man battling himself, but the monster always won. Tina's survival instinct grew stronger each day. She memorized road signs, hotel names, room numbers, anything that could later help police track his movements. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was waiting. Watching. Preparing. Waiting for the moment when she could escape. That moment arrived in Las Vegas. Wilder parked his car outside a store and told Tina not to move. He wanted to buy new clothes for himself. But inside the store, something frightened him, maybe a security guard, maybe a customer who recognized him, maybe nothing at all. Tina would never know. But Wilder rushed out, jumped into the car, and told her, "We're leaving. Don't ask questions." They drove for hours again, heading toward Utah, then Arizona. Wilder was losing control of himself, and of the world closing in on him. The FBI had officially linked multiple disappearances. News stations released his photo. Every state border had alerts. Airports, bus stations, and malls had posters of his face. He was no longer a hidden predator. He was America's most wanted man. Tina felt hope for the first time. Someone was looking for her. Someone was hunting the monster who took her. But Wilder wasn't done. Not yet. He made one last terrifying decision, a decision that would change everything. He drove Tina back to California. And let her go. Just like that. He told her to walk away and never speak his name. He told her she owed him her life. He told her she should feel grateful. She didn't look back. She ran. Tina became the girl who lived with the monster. And escaped. But the nightmare wasn't over for the rest of America. With Tina gone, Wilder was desperate, furious, unpredictable. His final victim was waiting just days ahead. And the end of his violent journey would be even darker than anyone expected. The morning after Lila's escape felt strangely unreal. The world outside had continued as if nothing had happened. Cars moved on the highway, people went to work, shops opened. But inside Lila's mind, everything was frozen in one moment of terror she could not shake off. Detective Marcus Hayes sat quietly across from her in the interview room. He had intentionally left the lights low and the air warm, hoping to make the room feel less like an interrogation and more like a place where she could breathe again. Lila's hands were still shaking. Not from the cold, not from fear alone. But from the sudden understanding that she had survived something most people never lived to tell. "Take your time," Hayes said softly. "You're safe now. He's not here." Lila nodded, but safety still felt like a fragile illusion, one she wasn't sure she could trust. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow made her heart race. Her body was free, but her mind felt trapped. The investigation begins. While Lila tried to collect herself, a swarm of detectives worked in the hallway, moving fast, determined. Hayes had already alerted the neighboring jurisdictions, notified state police, and issued an emergency bulletin under the name Eric Warren. Within minutes, officers began searching highways, truck stops, abandoned barns, and rural backroads. Helicopters were prepped. Patrol cars doubled their routes. But a killer like Eric didn't leave trails for long. He reinvented himself every time he moved. New name, new car, new town, new story. Hayes knew this too well. When he returned to the room, Lila's breathing slowed. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think he'll come after me?" Hayes didn't lie, not to victims. "I think he'll run," he said. "You exposed him. You're the one thing he didn't expect." Lila swallowed hard. The truth didn't give her comfort, it only reminded her how close she had been to death. The killer's pattern. Detectives had already started putting together everything Lila had described. Her escape gave them something they had never had before, a full pattern. Eric picked small towns. He blended in. He moved fast. He chose young women who traveled alone. He isolated them. He gained trust with calmness and soft speech. Then he attacked. But the most chilling part wasn't what he had done. It was what he had planned. Hayes replayed Lila's description of the hidden room, the tools, the isolation chamber. Eric wanted control, but he also wanted something else, an environment where time didn't exist, where victims couldn't measure hours or days, where escape felt impossible. "He's been perfecting this," Hayes whispered to his partner. "For years." The media explosion. By afternoon, news stations had picked up the story. Woman escapes serial predator. Highly dangerous suspect on the run. Small town shocked by dark discovery. But something unexpected happened too. People began calling the station claiming they had met someone with Eric's exact description. A gas station clerk recognized the truck. A motel owner remembered his quiet voice. A waitress recalled his strange calmness. Eric had been everywhere. And nowhere. A ghost wearing a smile. Each call added another city, another timeline, another near victim. A map in the command center began filling with pins, red for sightings, blue for possible victims, white for unexplained disappearances. It wasn't long before detectives realized the map wasn't random. It formed a pattern. A path. A direction. "He's heading north," Hayes said. "Toward bigger cities. Toward places where he can disappear again." Lila struggled to heal. Hours turned into evening. Lila stayed under police protection in a quiet room meant for victims and witnesses. They gave her water, blankets, and time to rest, but rest didn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Eric standing in the doorway, that calm expression on his face, like he was studying her. She pressed her hands to her ears, trying to block out the imagined sound of his footsteps. Her mother arrived later that night, rushing in with tears streaming down her face. She hugged Lila so tightly it almost hurt, but Lila didn't pull away. For the first time since her escape, she felt something familiar, a touch that didn't threaten her. But trauma didn't loosen its grip just because someone hugged her. It lingered like smoke, impossible to hold, impossible to escape. A new lead emerges. Just after midnight, the police phone rang. A man from a rural town 2 hours away had seen someone matching Eric's description. "He checked into my rental cabin," the caller said. "Paid cash. Left right after the news came on." Hayes stood up immediately. "Which direction?" "Back toward the highway." Hayes knew what that meant. Eric was moving again. Running. Changing. The detectives grabbed their gear. Patrol cars were notified. Another alert went out. And in the middle of all this chaos, Lila sat in silence, staring at the blank wall, wondering if she would ever feel like herself again. The final chase. At 2:17 a.m., a highway patrol officer radioed in. "I have a visual. Truck matching the description. Black pickup. Solo male driver. He's speeding." Hayes grabbed the radio. "Do not approach alone. Wait for backup. Keep distance." But Eric wasn't waiting. He slammed the accelerator. The truck shot forward, weaving through empty highway lanes. Within minutes, flashing lights appeared behind him, 3 cars, then 4. Eric didn't slow. Not even for a second. He took an exit without signaling, tires screeching. He raced down a narrow back road, dust rising behind him like a ghost trail. Then, the truck swerved. Skidded. Lost control. A loud crash echoed through the dark woods. Officers rushed in, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through the trees. The truck lay crushed against a fallen log. The windshield shattered. Smoke rising. But the driver's side door. Open. Eric was gone again. A shadow in the night. The truth about escaping a monster. When Hayes returned to the station, exhausted and frustrated, he found Lila awake, sitting on the bed with her knees pulled to her chest. "He's not dead, is he?" she asked. Hayes shook his head. "No." Lila didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply whispered, "I knew he wouldn't die easily." She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had fought for her life. "I'm not the same person anymore." Hayes sat beside her. "No," he said gently. "You're stronger now. Not because of what he did, but because you survived it." Lila closed her eyes. This time, when she exhaled, the breath didn't shake as much. The ending that wasn't an end. By morning, the official manhunt expanded statewide. News anchors repeated Eric's description. Roadblocks were set up. Helicopters scanned forests. Officers knocked on farmhouse doors. But killers like Eric didn't rely on luck. They relied on planning. A week later, a stolen vehicle was found used in a burglary. A gas station security camera captured a man matching his build. Then a woman from another state reported a stranger trying to approach her late at night. Each clue was a reminder. Eric wasn't gone. He was evolving. And Lila? She began therapy. She wrote in a journal. She learned to sleep again, even if only for short moments. Healing wasn't a straight line. But every step forward meant Eric had not taken her life. She had taken her power back. The world would remember her not as a victim. But now the world knew his face. His days were numbered. The hunt had only begun. And Lila's story had only just started giving strength to those who needed it.